In the entirety of the alien predator canon, there is one creature, one species that still remains a cosmic mystery. They are the most intelligent and technologically advanced creatures in maybe the entire alien predator fiction. They're the ones that the YAUTJA fear most. They're the ones that hunt the YAUTJA. They're the ones that harvest xenomorphs. And they're the ones that have sexual intercourse with xenomorphs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Maybe the oldest living species in the entire lore. Let me give you a flashback here. Ellen Ripley is currently in her cryosleep after the events of the first Alien movie. She awakes and joins the crew of the Marion, this space mining vessel similar to the one that she just blew up. They encounter a derelict spacecraft on a planet that seems to be grown bioorganically. And in this ship, they see all these xenomorph eggs. It seems to be infested with xenomorphs. They encounter a lot of them. It causes a catastrophe. Many battles with the xenomorphs take place in the story. But the most interesting part about this is the remnants of the species that bred these xenomorphs on this grown ship. Them. We don't know much about them. We don't know how long they were here. We don't know what occurred. But these beings were breeding, harvesting xenomorphs, and using them to create more and more weapons. And eventually, their ship probably got shot down. They are known as the Druthaki. I'm gonna try not to mix it up with Dothraki from Game of Thrones here, because that's very easy. That's a very easy mistake to make. The Druthaki, some of the most terrifying aliens in all of fiction, and I'm telling you, a movie needs to be made featuring or referencing these creatures at some point, alright? They are ancient. By that I mean at least 1 million years old. Early competitors to the engineers. Maybe they're older than the engineers we know, okay? They're very intelligent, and they put an emphasis on biotech. All their weapons, their ships, are made of bioorganic weaponry, alright? They have 6 limbs with canine feature. They are more dog-like in their aesthetic than anything else. They are 12 feet tall, massive beings, but also 10 times smarter than your average YAUTJA, which is why the YAUTJA fucking fear them. Because with their intellect, they're able to create the most superior tech ever. They once lived on Earth, okay? They were roaming around the Milky Way galaxy and were settling on Earth before they left. They possessed tech that was so infinitely beyond anything that the YAUTJA could comprehend on a biotechnical level that the YAUTJA really steered clear of them. Okay? Because they knew they're gonna fuck us up in a fight. They would take biomass, harvest it to create ships, guns, swords, very similar to the Tyranids from Warhammer, the Tyranids.
Also, it should be mentioned, these creatures were primarily hunters, not explorers. Everything they did was in the name of hunting, just like the YAUTJA. Except for them, anything that was bioorganic in nature was prey to them. It was used for sustenance, used for them to simply eat.
But their ultimate project was the Xenomorphs. Everyone knows that the Xenomorphs are like the perfect organism to use as a bioweapon. Every single species that's intelligent really wants them badly for this purpose. But the Druthaki, they were different. You see, not only did they harvest the Xenomorphs, but they tamed them and turned them into guard dogs so they could protect the Druthaki's interests against species like the Predators or the Engineers. They literally tamed them. They were doing this shit before Wendy did, y'all. Wendy's a fraud. Wendy, you thought you made the Xenomorph dogs? No. The Xenomorphs were made dogs prior to you ever existing. They were made dogs by this clan of species, okay? They would laugh at you, Wendy. They would laugh at you. The Druthaki started experimenting on the Xenomorphs, alright? Using their DNA, combining it with their own, using it to build walls and entire space vessels. That's what they were doing with the Xenomorphs. But there was also breeding happening, okay? And this is where shit gets weird, y'all. They were breeding with the Xenomorphs, but I don't mean they had facehuggers implanted on them and then impregnated life by. No. They literally took the Xenomorph, sat it down, and went full missionary. They had sex. There was a lot of this shit happening, y'all. A lot of... I don't know how this even works with the Xenomorph. Don't ask me, how the hell does it even... How could you even have intercourse with the Xenomorph? Is that even possible? I don't know. They found a way, y'all. They found a way. They infiltrated the Xenomorph hive mind, for God's sakes, using sex. And they started breeding more and more Xenomorphs without the need to put facehuggers and sacrifice themselves. That's how insane this species was. That's how beyond they were. Most of the Xenomorphs they fucked were drones. I don't know if they ever got to queens. It's rumored that they may have. It's rumored that queen mothers were created as a result of the hive mind adapting to the Druthaki infiltrating the hive mind through sex. Alright? But if they ever did fuck a queen, that would be big problems for every other species. And the YAUTJA really didn't like this. YAUTJA saw the sexual degeneracy that was happening, and they were like, bro, we need to stop this. The YAUTJA had to put their clamps down and calm down. And in the YAUTJA's view, these creatures, The Dothraki are too smart, they're too big, they're way bigger than us, they're too manipulative, and they're sexual degenerates that are about to breed more infestations of Xenomorphs. We can't allow this to happen. So the YAUTJA tried to come down, but they got fucked up badly, right? There was a series of fights, and this is why the YAUTJA feared them the most, because not only do the YAUTJA view them as malevolent, but the YAUTJA view them as almost superior. The YAUTJA's got pride, right? They don't stand down to anyone, but man, they knew in a full-on confrontation, their technology and their physical prowess in a combination is too deadly for us to fight. And combine that with the fact that they took Xenomorphs' DNA and armor and made weapons and bioweapons and all this shit with them. It's a terrible matchup for the Predators. It really is. But eventually, as a result of all this experimentation, all this warring with different species using the Xenomorphs, all the fucking that you do with Xenomorphs, you're gonna get overrun by the species that you're fucking with. That's why Xenomorphs are still maybe the deadliest creature in the freaking thing, because they're so perfect to be used as weapons by everyone that eventually you're gonna cause an infestation without knowing it, and it's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. And that's what happened. They got overrun by all these infestations and mutations that occurred as a result of all this fucking. The other piece of this lore is the phase, this piece of technology that they created, almost like their own sentient kind of AI that takes care of all of their weapons and systems. The phase is an unknown alien life form that was discovered within the Drukathi's ships, a sphere-like construct. It was discovered by the Founders, which is like basically a clan of humans that left Earth because they were done. They were done with the human factions, they were done with what life was, and they wanted to pursue a new life. So they found the phase, and they found out that the phase was capable of repairing and modifying technology at a greater quality than humans could ever imagine. And it was believed to have been created by the Drukathi to maintain all their constructs. So the humans, the Founders, used it, reverse engineered it from the Drukathi tech, and used aspects of it to revive dead Xenomorph remnants that they found on Drukathi ships in these dormant worlds. And that's when the shit really hit the fan. They used this phase to basically help them build a Xenomorph army of soldiers, and that started the Rage War, where they would invade Earth and declare war and revenge on all the human factions that they fled from, using these Xenomorph dogs, because they want to manipulate them the same way the Drukathi did. And the Predators had to get involved because now shit's getting too berserk. Once again, the cycle is repeating itself where humans are using Xenomorphs and infestations are being caused. It was kind of apparent that the phase really might have been too dangerous a weapon, because using this thing could have resulted in the extinction of all human life. They put it in an engine room and left it undisturbed, so no elders could get to it, because they feared that this thing would turn on them if they attempted to experiment on it. It's too powerful. The YAUTJA always knew that anyone who would fuck with the phase, this weapon created by the Dothraki, this weapon would manipulate them because it is made to do so by the Dothraki all those years later. Before the Dothraki went extinct, they created this being, this alien life form intelligence called the phase. And anyone who would use it would basically cause this conflict where dead Xenomorphs would rise up, cause wars. It would cause a shit show, leading to an extermination event of both species. This is like Dead Space with the markers. The markers were set there so people could fuck with it, and then it caused a huge infestation. That's exactly what the phase is, and the YAUTJA knew that. The YAUTJA knew that the phase was created as a manipulation weapon. The Dothraki poured their own will into this construct, so that anyone who uses it could reach the goal that the Dothraki had, which is exterminating the Xenomorphs and the human populace. Anyone who uses the phase would basically start a chain reaction of events that would eventually wipe out all species involved in the war, which is what the Dothraki wanted. If they can't take control, no one can. They're very much like the engineers, yeah? The engineers who in Prometheus decided to destroy Earth because they were done with their creation, right? It happened all these years later after humans developed and all that stuff. It's exactly the same situation. In fact, there's a lot of similarities between the engineers and the Dothraki. Both experimented on Xenomorphs, both were higher life forms with intelligence and crazy technology, but they went to war with each other. Because guess what? Both species can't have the Xenomorphs. This is a fucking arms race. The Dothraki would use their Xenomorph dogs to fight the engineers, and the engineers would experiment on their own Xenomorphs. It's a Xenomorph arms race. The Xenomorphs were bioweapons to both of them. In fact, the Dothraki were creating the Xenomorphs probably earlier, while the engineers were creating the Deacon version of the Xenomorphs, right? But the problem was, the Dothraki's biotech was inherently superior. But the engineers had one weapon that helped them win the war. Want to take a guess at what that was? The pathogen. The thing they were using to create Xenomorphs with. Now, we don't know who created the Xenomorph. We just know both experimented on the Xenomorph. The Xenomorph could have been this creature that was existing long before that, and the pathogen maybe comes from it. But the engineers cracked the code of the pathogen in the first place. They found this formula that could rapidly evolve and mutate things. So they used it in their war. And guess what happens when a weapon like that is being used on you, and you're also having sex with xenomorphs at the same time. Mass mutations in xenomorph outbreaks are going to occur and destroy an entire civilization. That's what happened to the Druthaki. That's exactly what happened to them. That's what caused the fall of the Druthaki. I believe that this whole thing, this whole story arc, is like an allegory for STDs. I truly think it is, bro. Think about it, man. If you're fucking at the level you are, all this degeneracy, and it leads to this shit, this is a metaphor. This is allegory. It's rumored that the YAUTJA put it in their code that we're not going to interfere with different cultures on a substantive level so that we change them. The YAUTJA were using xenomorphs in their blooding rituals, and they kept doing it. I don't exactly know the timelines here, but the YAUTJA wanted to use the xenomorphs as well. But they saw the war happening here, and they were like, okay, we know the price of interfering with different species. It's a problem. As a result of that Druthaki engineer war, the YAUTJA and the engineers started to go to war because guess what? The engineers were good competition for the YAUTJA, and the engineers wanted to experiment with the pathogen, while the YAUTJA just wanted to control the use of xenomorphs for their blood hunts. Pathogen in the wrong hands is a problem, as was seen in the fight between the engineers and the Druthaki, which is what probably sparked this war in the first place. And it all came down to who uses the xenomorph, who gets their hands on this little fucker over here. And Wayland would be repeating the cycle. It's very interesting how it all works, man. But that's the Dothraki, one of the most terrifying species in the entire alien lore canon. I'm telling you, bro, Disney, you're running out of ideas, bro. Just go into the comic books and take a look at some of these species. Take a look at the creatures that the Xenomorphs fear as well, the white lizards on their planet, and take a look at them. There's a lot of cool lore to be had here. I suggest that you take a look. Hurry up, Disney. Time is running out. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission to take over Hollywood. But the army must keep growing. If you want to suggest video topics to me, or talk about your favorite movies or favorite film theories in a community with like-minded individuals, join the Zafy Discord now. Link is in the description and the comment section as well. Join us. This movement is just beginning. We're taking over Hollywood, one coke line at a time.